right, so this is a very quick run through of the DBQ. So let's see here. I haven't done one of these YouTubes in a while. Okay, so the first thing you got to do is read the question. And here it is. And you can freeze frame this whenever you want. Analyze the causes of and responses to the 1968 crisis in France. So, and then they got some historical background here. What you need to do, first off, is figure out your contextualization. 1968 is during, the 1960s. And this is before that. What's going on in France? The Cold War. What happened before that? World War II. Who helped rebuild France? The Marshall Plan. But the big thing going on is the Cold War and that never-ending duel between liberal versus conservative. So anyway, analyzes the causes of and responses to the 1968 crisis in France. And I'm trying to do this in a hurry, so you're not going to see a lot of writing on the screen. So what you need to do on your papers, you need to write down the document numbers. I believe the ones I gave you were 2, 3, 4, 5, and 10. So just number 2, 3, 4, 5, and 10. And we're going to go look at them. We're going to decide if they are causes or responses. So here we go. Document 2. We got to read who does this. This is the leader of the French Communist Party, and he's writing this in the Communist Party newspaper. Remember what CAPS is. CAPS is context, audience, who's he writing to? And this is an audience one. This is the leader of the Communist Party talking to his people in his Communist Party newspaper. So he is probably going to say things to them he wouldn't say to anybody else. Let's see, what are the rest of the CAPPS? P, point of view. P, purpose. And S, setting. All right, so let's see what he says. Small revolutionary groups are active everywhere. These pseudo, and that's the word I pronounced wrong, revolutionary groups are now presuming to give lessons to the labor movement. These false revolutionaries must be energetically unmasked because in actual fact they are serving the interests of the Gaullist machine. Now Gaulle is the guy running France. They are damaging our party, and he's talking about the Socialist Party, and attempting to question the primacy of the working class in the struggle for progress, democracy, and socialism. The French Communist Party is the best defender of the immediate demands of manual and intellectual workers. So this is about a cause. So let's go back and look. So this is not a response. This is a cause. And what is one of the causes of the crisis in France? People stirring up trouble. Okay. All right. So you're just going to write this down. People stirring up trouble. I know that's not very intellectual, but this is how we're going to do this. Now, when we do caps, if we're going to do caps on this guy, we're going to say that he's defending his party. All right, so we got document 2 here. Let's look at document 3. She's a reporter, I'm assuming that's a she, for the conservative newspaper. What are the causes? Well, right there we know what this is going to be about, causes. What are the causes of this? First of all, the causes reside in the values of the entire society. They also come from within the university, the overflow of students, the anxiety they feel about their future, and the insufficient adaptation of teaching to their needs. So this is a cause. I don't know what we're going to say this is. Let's look at 4. Worker solidarity pamphlet, data unknown. In the late 60s in France, real wages are on the rise, but large sections of the working class are still suffering from low pay. This is despite foreign trade having tripled. 25% of all workers are receiving less than 500 francs, equivalent to $100 per month. Some unskilled workers are getting only 400 francs a month. Unemployment is 500,000. Trade membership is down. The Michelin Tire Company says it only has talked to trade unions 3 times in 30 years. Okay, 2 is a cause, but it's rabble-rousers causing trouble. 3 and 4 sound like the people who write this think there's legitimate reasons. So I'm going to say that 3 and 4 say the same thing. So 2, 3, and 4 are all causes. Let's see what document 5 is. Document 5 is a political cartoon in a leftist publication, and they're blaming everything on the cops, looks like. Oh my gosh, they're saying exams are repressive and solidarity with workers. Can you imagine this? These kids are going to college, and they're claiming that they shouldn't have to take tests. All right, so I'm going to say You could put this with either the first group or the second group. Document 2 clearly is for rabble-rousers. 3 and 4 sound like there's some legitimate concerns. 5 could go either way. So I'm going to say, I'm going to put 2 and 5 in the same group. So if you know how to do a DBQ chart, 2 and 5 are going in the same group, and 3 and 4 are going to go in the same group. Let's see what, so far we only have causes. Let's see, we only have one document left. If it's a response, it better be. And the person who came up with these documents is a crafty individual. Let's see here. Source. Wait a minute. It's not document 10, it's document 11. There's the other document. All right. And if I didn't give you document 11, it's because I was in a hurry and screwed up. This is the final document. Source, President de Gaulle. Now remember, he's the conservative running the country. Television speech to supporters immediately following the Gaullist election victory. So right in the middle of this, he wins an election. Okay, and here's what he says. France is indeed threatened by dictatorship. The totalitarian communists are waiting to ride to power on France's despair. This is what happens when I do videos in a hurry. The Republic will not abdicate. The people will collect themselves. Progress, independence, and peace will prevail, along with liberty. Vive la France. So this is going to be a response. And he's going to respond and blame everything on the communists. All right. So let me go ahead and do start on this. So let's come over here to Microsoft Word. And so here's what we're going to do. We're going to start with contextualization. 3 to 5 sentences. Okay, we want to make that bigger. You guys are going to copy this down. Contextualization. 1968 France was a cauldron of disappointed left-wingers and right-wingers determined to hold on to power. All right, so I paused the video so you wouldn't hear me talking to myself. As I wrote this, I dumped a whole bunch of stuff on here. Now remember, we want to get outside evidence later on. So I just threw a whole bunch of facts in here. The 1960s were a time of troubles, from left-wing protests of the Vietnam War in the U.S. to fighting between cops and students in Mexico City to the trouble in France. France had had many such protests in the past, I missed a comma there, including the protests that led to the French Revolution. Many French children had been raised listening to stories about the sans-culottes. Street protesters had become heroes. You could throw anything in here, everything but the kitchen sink, the Marshall Plan, the Berlin Wall, the Greens Party, all these other protests that they'd had there. But give yourself enough to get, and I see I misspelled, disappointed. It's probably good. I'm going to leave that mistake there because every DBQ you do is actually a rough draft. So now remember, I need to come up with a 3-part thesis. And here I go. Let's go back and look and see what the question was. What was the question? Question was causes and responses. All right, so causes of the 1968 French protests were, here we go, A, rabble-rousing by, I can't say pissed off people, disaffected elements that wanted to overthrow the, how do you spell this, Gaullist regime. Now I'm blowing smoke here, but that's what that document 2, and I guess we're going to decide document 5 was. They were, people causing trouble, or at least people thought they were causing trouble. Now we need to come up with another group, and B, legitimate concerns from young students afraid for their futures. Remember, this is going to be ugly, like your ex-wife. Legitimate concerns from young students afraid for their futures. And the response, now I'm only going to give one because I only gave you one document. And the response of C, the government blaming all the unrest on the communists. All right, so far so good. All right, we're back with our first body paragraph. And you want to have a topic sentence. You remember, so far we've got 2 points. We've got contextualization and we've got thesis, 2 points. We need to have the point for argumentation, and that's where you list your points. We've got 3 groups. So every group gets its own paragraph. So this is going to be a 4-paragraph essay. So every body paragraph is going to have a topic sentence, which refers back to the thesis. We can go ahead and put an A here. You know, I don't know whether you should do this or not, but it helps refer back to your thesis. So basically this paragraph is on group A, and we decided to put documents 2 and 5 there. I will say, after putting the video on pause and reading 5 again, 5 would have been better off in the other group, but we're going to make it work here because I have to leave the house here in a few minutes and I got to get this done. So here we go. The first cause was troublemaking by the disaffected elements. This is illustrated in document 2. So my rule is that you circle your document numbers. That makes it easier for the person grading this to, make sure you've used all the documents. So there's 2, which blames the trouble on groups trying to make the communists look bad. Looks like they don't have the answer, and the author clearly believes the communists do have the answer. These troublesome elements are throwing fuel on the fire and are causing the strife. Always do 3 sentences of analysis, and then you do caps. And because this is a publishment in a publication, I'm going to go along with either purpose or audience. Now remember, what the person said is what. Caps is who said it and why. So here we go. It should be taken into account that this was written by the head of the Communist Party. That's who, and here's why. In his own party newspaper, and he's clearly trying to assure his members that they have the situation well in hand. Now let's do the next document. Document 5 is much the same. The riot places are the cause of the trouble. Riot police. Oh my gosh. Well, I promised you I'd get this done. I got to get an economics review ready. But here we go. The riot police are the cause of the trouble, and the university exams are making it much worse. The point is that the trouble is caused by groups that have put their own interests before those of the country. Notice that's 3 sentences analyzing the document, and now I'm going to do caps. Again, this is from the perspective of a left-wing publication. That's who, and here's why. And the placard, which is pretty much like a poster, and the placard carried about to sway opinion, much like propaganda. So we then now have the sourcing point. So far we've got 4 points. We got contextualization, we got thesis, we got argumentation, we got analysis. That's 3 sentences per doc, and we have sourcing, which is caps. Now, to get full credit, you got to do 2 more body paragraphs. I'm not going to do the other 2 body paragraphs. I've hoped you've learned your lesson here, and we'll be doing another DBQ soon. The only other point we haven't gone over is outside evidence. So let me see here. We need to tell them something that is not in the documents. So I'm going to put an OE here. Got to turn off the underline, which stands for outside evidence. And I'm going to throw in the Martin Luther King assassination and the Robert Kennedy assassination. The U.S. was beset by strife as well because 1968 was the date of the assassinations Cannot type. Oh my gosh, let's go back and figure this out here. Riots. I don't even see what I misspelled there. Okay, we're going to leave that there. And all right, so I'm going to sign off here. But you have all the points as long as you go on and do 2 more body paragraphs that both have topic sentences. They both circle the document numbers. So the next one would have documents 3 and 4 in it. And the final one would have document 11. All right, signing off here. If you copy this down and email this to me, I will change your DBQ grade to 100.